Hi, folks, and welcome to this second in the series of coaching sessions to try and help support coxswains with their racing and race starts is the focus of this session. So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at how to do race starts. We're going to talk about collisions and the problems, what happens there, how we can overcome those things there. And this is the idea. This is a session prior to going and then doing some on the water practice on there. So please watch through and make notes and think about these things as you go. Okay, so first of all, I want you to try and define, first of all, what you think a good start actually is. It's really important to do so, but also what you think a bad start is. So take a moment and write down a few thoughts that you have. Maybe if there's other people there, discuss it with them. What do you think a good start is when it comes to racing? What's a bad start? Okay, so let's have a look at what a good start is. So most of you are going to come with probably some fairly similar points here. So the boat position is set for a clear run to the first buoy. That's going to help us. Secondly, they've got clear water around the boat and oars, so that means not going to have any clashing issues, particularly in that first couple of minutes of the race. So we don't want that on there, so that's going to be good. In line with the other gigs. Now that's important. What we're saying is we don't want to be too far in front, i.e. we'll likely get cold to come back, etc. Or we are being asked to come up and then they shout go with us too far back. So that's what I'm kind of talking about there. Okay, all rowers in time, rowing well to accelerate the boat. That is what we are wanting on there, and that is something which to an extent we have influence over, but also is something which training and practice also has an influence over. So let's look on the other side, the things that we're going to try and avoid. So firstly, boat position leading to DQ or disqualification. So particularly, obviously, the big one is the sillies. We know that if you're over the line on the sillies, and when that time goes, if you're over it, you are automatically disqualified. Okay, and we don't want this generally. So having a boat that's in a position that's too far forward or that's in some way causing a problem, that is one thing we would regard as a bad start. A boat in a position that's going to lead to clashing oars or a full collision, again, that would be a bad start for us as a coxswain on there. We don't want to have it so that it's doing that. Also, being too far back or backing up when they shout go. Again, we don't want that situation. And again, that's about being on but not over the line at the right time there. Okay, and having the rowers not focused, not ready. So again, having that sort of discussion as we go through with them, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You want to make sure that they're focused and ready on there. So hopefully you're going to generally agree with the stuff on the left hand side, what's a good start and what's a bad start on the right on there. So hopefully we're all kind of on the same page about what we're aiming for now. Okay, also poor timing, poor rowing, those things there, that's not going to help and be a really good start. Okay, so let's bear that in mind. Okay, then as previously, what we're going to do, we're going to be talking about the factors affecting. We're going to refer to the word current, and the current we're using to combine a range of factors, include tide, flow of a river, the wind direction, wave direction, all those things there. While these can come from different angles at different directions, different times, and can vary throughout a course, ultimately they can do things like generate swell, etc. There generally is a key factor in most situations which will be the strongest, or will all add up when you've got a couple of them adding up combined to be the strongest. So in this situation, that is what we're referring to as current. Okay, so when we're saying, and if I say about current in this, we're talking about the combined factors which are pushing the boat one way or another. Okay, so it adds up ultimately to be the one direction is going to be being pushed in most of the time in theory on there. So that's something to bear in mind. Okay, so let's have a quick look, and I'd like to discuss where do you think would be the best position to be when go is cool. Okay, so spend a couple of minutes talking to people and think it through. Okay, so let's have a look what answers we've got here to this. Well, A is ideal if the current is pushing us up to the line, but it's actually a little bit too far back if it's pushing us away from the line. B, on a neutral tide, or when the current is not really flowing that much, then that would be acceptable on there. However, it can also mean that you are the person who's told to hold water while other crews are told to come up, come up, come up on those things there. And that isn't ideal, as it actually you end up kind of being used as like the mark that they call out other people up onto, and that gives you a bit of a disadvantage. So you don't particularly, if other boats are still positioning, to be on the line already, okay? And if current is pushing from behind over the line, actually that's quite a dangerous position. That's likely to lead to you being either told to back up or disqualified if you're not careful, if that is behind you, okay? And C, when we look at C, well, C is lined up too close to B. Now, that's an issue because it's likely to lead to clashing of oars and to problems regardless of whether they manage to pull up or not on those things there. So actually what they really need to do is be a little bit further over on that. There's plenty of space on that line. C has come too close and is likely to cause themselves and potentially B a problem. So is also too far back and likely to be being called up. So that's not really a great position. Basically, we don't want to be C. There's not a single right position that we can say for every single situation. Okay, but what we can say is C is never a good one. Okay, so that's why we don't want that. We don't want it too close to another boat that's going to lead to us clashing. We don't want to be too far off the line either by comparison to the other crews. Okay, so let's break down the start. Let's think it through. We're going to talk it through in different bits. So first of all, the purpose of the session and the key parts of it, we're going to be looking at the position, control of the boat and crew, the start, and setting your line. So getting your course on those things there. Okay, so let's look at the positioning. So when you're going out to race, you want to pick your position carefully. Sometimes you're going to get allocated berths, but you can choose to be more to the left or more to the right, more to the shore side or further out within those buoys or within those markers. And again, that's going to depend on a variety of factors, including wind, waves, all those things. So we're going to use that with current. So depending on current, where you want to put it, but also the topography, meaning sort of the layout of the actual river itself. Now, particularly in river and estuary based rows, you are more likely to come across sandbanks as an issue. Obviously, while at sea, it might be that you are more likely to have wave breaking a different way, or there may be some navigational hazards such as rocks or lobster pots or those things there. Like if you go down Cavelli, they tend to have some lobster pots and that out there we can got to watch out for. So you need to be aware of what's going on around you, the river or in that part of the sea, as much as is possible. That will help you. Now, one way of doing that is going down at low tide beforehand, or you can go on good old Google Maps and have a look at it before. But also speak to local coxes, speak to people who know the area, who have done these things before, who might be able to give you some local knowledge there. But also, there's always a Cox's briefing, which you should always attend. Even if you're not planning on coxing it that year, I'd still recommend you pop along and just give it a listen. You'll start then picking it up. Try not to be the first, if you're in a new area you've not done before, try not to be the first one to be coxing there. Try and let a more experienced cox in that destination take that first boat. If you have to. But it can give you the chance to look at and watch the conditions and watch the turns of those things there, have a little conversation to the cox when they come back in, etc. on there. So it's also worthwhile having a conversation with race officials. You say, I've not coxed here before, I want to get this right. They want the race to run well. They don't want people hitting the hazards or doing those things there, and they want their event to run well. So they will give you support and advice. They might not tell you of the absolute best line, etc., but they might point out some navigational hazards and some other aspects which you may or may not be familiar with on there, or little tricks or little things that they say, just to give you a little bit of advice. People are quite friendly, they're quite helpful on there. It is a competition, but they also generally, people running events want the event to go well. And people who get it wrong tend to be coxes. And so if they can make sure the coxes get it right, that tends to make them happier. Anyway, so you can also, as you are headed out, look at the course. If you can look at a low tide, it's always helpful. I say you can use Google Maps on those things there, but if possible, go down, look at it beforehand on there, especially things like the history race. You've got a long row on there. There's lots of different points there. Go down at low tide and watch it fill up and see how the water rises and falls and on those things there. You learn more and more over time, but it's a thing. On the side, we've got a little mock-up of some different hazards on there. So we got a couple of red navigational buoys put that sandbar or sandbank on the side, and which we see particularly for A, that's going to potentially be an issue. If they go over that, as you've seen in Appledore many times, probably that's likely to lead to them slowing or even getting stuck, even stopping the boat completely. So A is going to need to actually adjust their angle a little bit, and because of that, that means they're going to probably come in a little bit closer to B. When we look at C, we see that actually there's a navigational hazard on their way. There's a boat there that it may be moving, or it may be moored, or it may be a buoy, it might be something else, it's just representing something in the way in which they would need to anticipate where that's going to go and steer accordingly. If it's a boat that's transiting the course, then you feel it's going to find a time there, that's fine. You can maybe aim slightly towards the middle of the boat, and therefore you end up going behind it if it's moving at a reasonable rate. But if it's stationary, you're going to need to make sure you take plan to go around it. So in this case, again, most likely what's going to happen is it steers towards C. Now that means the coxswain in B needs to be aware of a couple of things. Both the crews in A and in C are likely, for different reasons, to want to come in. Now, with most river rowing, for either reasons of getting the line on the buoy, or because there's navigational hazards, or other things there, most people at some point will be wanting to move slightly inwards on there. So if you are that B boat, if you're, there might be a variety of ones in the middle, you might recognize and feel boats kind of starting to push in on you, and there's a couple of options there. You can shout to give water, or hold your line, etc. on those things there. You can pull your crew and try and get your crew to push further forward, or if you're really if that crew is definitely more likely to get ahead, you can allow them to pull ahead, and then you can slip them behind, pull round there, and that might actually help you. So if you got Falmouth rowing right next to your crew, and you think, you know what, actually they're likely to go ahead, it might be that you choose to make the decision there. But these things will always depend upon the race, depending on the crews and all of those things there. Okay, so let's look on the next bit. Okay, so positioning for the boats and for the buoy. So as I say, when you're lining up on that line, the things you should be aware of, I'll give you 4 things. I put them in order, but I've not put them in hierarchy. They're just 4 things. So know the topography of the river for the next 500 to 1,000 meters. I know both myself and Tom Trapnell have gone afoul of a particular buoy just off the harbour wall, just off the slipway when doing the history race, and literally I got caught on there on my rudder before because I went over the rope. That was a navigational hazard. It's part of the topography there. But I've also, again, I've been doing this race planning, so I'm thinking about it lots. I do remember one year having a crew and having Colin on the inside trying to us out, and everyone who met Colin will know he's a very aggressive cox on there, but I just held my line, and it meant that he ended up having to turn his boat behind my crew, and it caused him time and energy in order to catch it. He had to work very, very hard then to overtake the crew. So, people are not always going to give you away in there. So, but knowing the topography of the river, that's going to really help you. Okay, but also you should know the strength and the weaknesses of your crew. Okay, because if you are going to be in a situation where you're next to some really, big hitters, and you're with a big hitting crew, and it's likely that you're going to reach the clinch points together. If you're a stronger crew and you've got some weaker ones around you, it's likely you're going to be able to pull ahead. Vice versa, if you've got the weaker crew, that you're likely to be able to pull up behind. But what you should do then is probably slips and get behind one of the fastest crews there, and that will help you slightly on those things there. But there's always different things there. Okay. Anyway, you should, as I say, know about the crews and the boats around you the best you can, obviously. Sometimes you come across people on a regular basis. Sometimes you never see them before and you won't see them again. And also where you want to be when you're hitting that first buoy. Okay. Firstly, you don't want to actually hit the buoy, but secondly, what you want to do is you want to actually make sure you get that good turn. Do you want to position so that you're coming slightly wide and then cutting in close, or do you want to be cutting close right from the line? It all depends again on those currents that we see there, all those factors pushing you on, etc. Please do go back and watch the video on buoy turns on that session for our previous one to help you with that if you want to. But number 4 is we want to be thinking, yes, that far ahead, where we want to hit that first buoy, and by the time we're hitting that first buoy, we also want to be thinking about where we want to be hitting that second buoy, and if there's a third, where we're going to hit that third, then where are we going to be crossing the line, etc., etc. Always planning ahead, not just planning now, not just reacting to what's here right with us at the moment. Okay, so planning ahead is really, really helpful. So these factors are what you need to consider when you pick your place and when you set your angle for the start. Again, that's always going to be significant. The angle in which your boat is up on the start line is important. We can't always pick our position, but you can always pick your angle. So just bear that in mind. So on the way out to the start, the first thing you should be doing is calming your crew. Calm and focus them. Get them so that they know what it is they're going to be doing, maybe talk through. For some, a little practice start can be useful. If you've got like a long race, you might not want to do that because it might be a waste of energy. However, you can also do it by asking for a steady rate, talking through the course of the race, making sure that they're listening to your voice, not having lots of different voices on there, your voice on this, to make it clear about who's in charge and what's going to be happening. But then we can also go through and you can say, right, okay, if oars clash, this is what we're going to do. Make sure that you find water and get the stroke, etc. That sort of thing. Just calm stuff on there, just so they know that you're in charge, but also that they know what's going to happen in a couple of different situations. Okay. In the minutes coming up to the start, get them focused by doing maybe a couple of taps up. So this is a nice little habit which quite a few of our coxes do, which they'll sit back a little bit, knowing that they're going to have to tap up. And the tapping up, the first ones are always messy. The second one's better. Third one's right in time. And if you can get it so that your fourth one when you tap up is the start, then you know what? You normally smash it. So yeah, doing that a couple of times can get ready. And using the term sit ready can be a great way to, again, just get them focused on there, not scratching that itch, not having a drink, not looking over their shoulder and chatting to Steve in the other boat and all. Just get them focused, sit ready on those things. The last couple of seconds before the start is called sit ready, go. Yep, that's what we're looking for. So we've put a quick break in here. We've covered 20 minutes of stuff. So what we've looked at is we looked at what good and bad start is. We also considered position and getting those calm crew ready to go. So in our next session, what we're going to look at decision making. We're going to look at why collisions happen and what we can do about it. And we're going to set up for our practical parts of our session. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you in the second part once you've had a break for a few minutes and are ready to go again. Okay, thank you very much.